Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Cryptids of Myth and Folklore series. It's quite long overdue, I do admit, and that's because I lost interest in making the series. I didn't find an interest in cryptozoology anymore. But I've refound this interest, and welcome to Creatures from Asia and Antarctica, the third episode. So let's get straight into this. Ahul. Ahul is a bipedal creature that roams the Java jungle of Indonesia and also on New Guinea Island. However, on New Guinea Island it is presumed to be a ropen, a subspecies, if you will, of the ahul. Most sightings depict ahul as half bat, half primate. From this we can presume that ahul is an omnivore, feeding on meat, plants and also insects. In terms of roaming the Java jungle, ahul is said to have a wingspan of 6 to 9 metres. However, in terms of the ropen of New Guinea Island, he is said to be smaller, at a wingspan of 8.5 metres. Both of these incarnations are said to be 3 metres tall. Ahul was first sighted in 1925 by Dr. Ernest Bartels, son of M.G. Bartels. The story goes that Ernest was exploring a waterfall up in the Salak Mountains in Indonesia, when suddenly a giant winged creature, he presumed that it was a bat, flew over his head. Over 2 years later, in 1927, Dr. Ernest Bartels encountered the creature again. He was laying in bed in his thatched house near the river Tejendekol when suddenly he heard a loud cry, which sounded like ahul. Abath. Abath is a deer-like unicorn that was encountered when James Lancaster's crew were exploring the East India in the Kingdom of Lon Salam, which is now Phuket Island in Thailand. Given that the abath is a unicorn-like animal, we can presume that it is therefore herbivorous. Numerous sightings of the abaths have been debunked or proven that the people who thought they saw an abath actually saw a Sumatran or Javan rhinoceros. However, if people are mistaking abaths for large creatures such as rhinoceroses, we can thus guess that it is between 2.5 to 4 metres long. The first and probably only sighting of the abath that hasn't been debunked yet was in 1601, when James Lancaster was travelling to East India to the Kingdom of Lansalau, and whilst there, a member of James's crew, named Edmund Barker, purchased 2 to 3 horns of a creature known as the abath. This expedition would eventually lead to the formation of the East India Company linking to the British Empire. Amamasu. Amamasu is a giant fish of Japanese folklore, and it is said to roam areas of Hokkaido. In some tales it is large enough to hold up the entire earth, just like the Namazu, but in others it is only strong enough to kill a hawk. Being a fish, we can imply that it is being a planktivore or a crustaceivore, meaning it only feeds on plankton or crustaceans. As I said before, some tales depict it as holding up the Earth, and the Earth itself is 12,742 kilometres wide, so we can imply that it is probably either a few metres long or tens of thousands of kilometres wide. A famous tale of Amamasu goes like this. A deer was once drinking in Lake Mashu in Hokkaido when it was suddenly eaten by the Amamasu. Unluckily, though, the deer's antlers pierced the Amamasu's stomach, and the creature bled to death, and its course blocked the river and would eventually cause a massive flood. Nearby was a village, and a god took the form of a bird and warned the people that there would be a flood. Most of the people listened and fled upstream, but for some stayed near the bottom of the river. When they found the carcass, a massive flood occurred, wiping out everything in its path. People believe that this is what's called the Consegna Plain. These are the films featuring the famous Amamasu. The Andaman wood owl. The Andaman wood owl is a species of Andaman owl that is claimed to roam forests of the Andaman Islands in the Indian Ocean. Judging by it being an owl, we can guess that it is an insectivore, feeding only on insects. There are other species of Andaman owls on the island, and these range in size from 18 to 25 centimetres in length, so we can only improvise that the Andaman wood owl is around the same size. The first and last sighting of the Andaman wood owl is unknown, but many people speculate that it is an undiscovered species of owl, so we are yet to get any data on an actual sighting. Arabian flying snakes, also known as arapahs. The arapah, or the Arabian flying snake, is a winged serpent that is claimed to live near the Arabian Sea. However, they also have the ability to hang and sleep on frankincense trees like a bat. It is because of this that when Arabians are planting these trees, they put styrax on their crops to keep these cryptids away. During spring, these winged serpents fly from Arabia to migrate to Egypt. Since most of his body resides as a snake, we can conclude that the arapah is probably carnivorous, just like a snake. The arapah is said to be 1.2 meters long, which is quite small for a snake. The arapah first dates back to the 4th century BC, or before Christ, when Greek historian Herodotus claimed to have spotted numerous snakes with wings, typo, in the city of Buteau, which is now Tel El Farain, translating to Hill of the Pharaohs. He told his account to the locals, and they showed him a mountain bypass where they think the winged serpents entered from. Herodotus continues to mention this account in his book The Histories, written in 425 BC. Despite these accounts, there could be a logical explanation to these winged serpents. One explanation is that there is a family of snakes called the Chrysopedia, which are groups of snakes that can actually glide in the air, but they do not actually have wings. Another explanation is that it could have been fossilized remains of Spinosaurus aegypticus, a dinosaur with a sail membrane on its back. The Bashkortostan creature. The Bashkortostan creature is a biped creature theorized to be an ape, an almas, and even in some cases an unextinct Neanderthal. It was captured on a dashcam in 2016 by 2 Russian tourists. A logical explanation to what these tourists could have saw is that it was a poacher trying to not get hit by the incoming car that tourists were actually driving. However, the mountainous region would suggest that nobody would really be there, but the first and only sighting was in 2016, however, where 2 Russian tourists were driving in the Republic of Bashkortostan near the Russia-Kazakhstan border, when suddenly they spotted a white bipedal figure across the road, and at first the tourists thought it was a moose, until realizing it could not be that. Bergmann's bear. Bergmann's bear is a species of bear that is allegedly inhabiting the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. It was first sighted in 1920 by Swedish zoologist Sten Bergman, who named the bear after himself. Being a bear, we can imply that it is an omnivore. Sten Bergman measured the bear's footprint to be 14.5 by 10 inches, which is 37 by 25 centimeters. In 1920, Swedish zoologist Sten Bergman was exploring in the Kamchatka Peninsula and was examining the hide of a bear to identify it. His first thought was the Kamchatka brown bear, but this hide was different to all bears he'd ever seen before, and so he declared it a new species and named it after himself, Bergmann's bear. Over 40 years later, in 1960, a hunter named Rodion Sivbolov reported experiences of Kamchatka locals of a giant bear that they referred to as Ikriem, translating to God bear. Nikolai Vereshchagin, a biologist, theorized that Bergmann's bear and Ikriem could be related to Arctodus simus, an extinct species of bear. However, neither of these bears matched Arctodus's description. In 2013, in Fairbanks, Alaska, the Boone and Crockett Club announced that one of their members, Larry Fitzgerald, had found a bear whose skull measured 13/16 size of an inch. This is very big. These are the films featuring Bergmann's bear, and they're already quite old. The Mongolian deathworm. I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, but the Mongolian deathworm is one of the most famous cryptids ever and resides in Mongolia. It is part of Gobi folklore and also in Western culture, and it is where Western culture actually gave it the name of Mongolian deathworm. That's a fun fact. It lives under the Gobi Desert, or it is said to live under the Gobi Desert, and it is said to spew corrosive saliva and generate electrical blasts. It is said to prey on humans and camels, and this therefore makes it a carnivore. There are numerous tales depicting numerous sizes for this beast. Some say around 2 feet long, or 60 centimetres, whilst others say 7 feet long, which is 2 metres, and some even dare to say a mere metre. The sightings of the Mongolian deathworm are said to date back to 1,000 years ago, but due to the USSR, or the Soviet Union, having control of Mongolia up until 1990, nothing much was known about Mongolia, or the Mongolian deathworm. Recently, however, Ivan Makel, who is a lead detective on the Loch Ness Monster, interviewed locals of Mongolia about the cryptid, and after gathering all the evidence he had, he came to the conclusion that it was not just a legend. Despite all this, nobody is sure what the creature actually is. Some suspect it is indeed a worm, but scientists say that the Gobi Desert is too hot and arid for such animals as worms. In 2005, the CFZ, the Centre for Fortean Zoology, walked thousands of miles across the Gobi Desert in search of the Mongolian deathworm. Despite not finding anything, they concluded that the worm was apocryphal. Not only has the Mongolian deathworm been featured in films, but it was also featured in Ark. Pillimara. Pillimara, also known as the cow-eating tree, is a carnivorous plant focusing more not only on cryptozoology, but cryptobotany. It is much like the Madagascar tree, which is an African carnivorous tree. Okay, stay tuned for a future episode. The cryptid is supposedly roaming the Upper forest range in India. Being that it eats cows, we can say it's a carnivore. Pretty obvious in my opinion. Pillimara in the local language translates to tiger tree. The first sighting of this cow-eating tree is unclear, but the last known sighting was 2007, where locals of the Padrame near the forest claimed to have seen a tree trying to grab and dine on a cow. The cow was, according to residents, owned by a person known as Anand Gowda, and it had been left to graze in the forest. However, the locals who saw the tree, along with Anand Gowda himself, struck mortal blows to the Pillimara's branches, and the cow thankfully escaped. Later that evening, however, there had been reports of cattle returning home without tails. One whole day after this event, news had said that a tree in the area had been felled, meaning it got cut down and fell over. Okorokomui. Okorokomui is an octopus-like creature of Asia that is said to roam Funka Bay and Uchiura Bay, both in Hokkaido. It is a creature of Ainu folklore, but is also mentioned in the Japanese religion of Shintoism. There are many tales of Okorokomui sinking ships and eating fishermen aboard, so we can say that it is carnivorous. Most tales describe Okorokomui's body length to be at least 120 meters long. Many sightings have not been documented, but it is confirmed that Okorokomui has been seen in Korea and in Taiwan. One tale says that a man named Rabunj was cursed by a half-man, half-spider creature called Yaoshi Kapu, and the curse was that he would witness the destruction of his own town of Abuta Toyura. Fortunately, the town's Kapi, which means god, Rapunkamui, transformed Yaoshi Kapu into an octopus and banished him into the ocean. One day, the cephalopod that is Yaoshi Kapu once ate some fishermen on a boat. Infuriated by this, Rapunkamui poisoned Yaoshi Kapu, but unfortunately, Yaoshi learned to use this poison against his opponents and prey. Orang Pendek. Orang Pendek, which translates to short person in the native lingo, is an ape-like creature of Indonesian folklore, and it is said to inhabit the island of Sumatra. There are many suspicions of Orang Pendek being a surviving species of Homo floresiensis, also known as the Flores man. a species of human that inhabited the island of Flores in Indonesia, and it lived about 50,000 years ago. There is evidence that they ate small elephants and large rodents, so we can only conclude that's what Orang Pendek ate as well. It is said to be 1 to 2 meters tall, which is 3 to 6 foot. Orang Pendek was first sighted in the 1300s by John of Marignoli upon visiting the kingdom of Sabah, which is now presumed to be either Java or Sumatra. Upon this, scientists have studied the Orang Pendek for decades. In 2009, the UK branch of the CFZ went on 5 expeditions, well that stands for Centre of 14 Zoology, went on 5 expeditions to Sumatra in search of this elusive ape. Upon this, they found hair, tracks, vocalizations, and even a sighting. The footprints, tracks, and hair, supposedly belonging to the Orang Pendek, has been studied by the University of Copenhagen. They too suggest that it is a surviving species of the Flores man. The one film that features the Orang Pendek. I'm pretty sure we all know this one. If you don't, well, we all know now. The Yeti. The Yeti, more commonly known as the Abominable Snowman, is arguably the most famous cryptid of Asia, or, some might even argue, of all time. It is described to be a giant humanoid biped with white hair. It is said also to inhabit the mountains of India, Nepal, Bhutan, China, Russia, Siberia, and Tibet. However, Tibet is not a country, it is a landmass just owned by China. It is said to be carnivorous, and the Yeti is also said to be 2 to 3 meters tall. It is 6 to 10 feet and weigh between 90 to 180 kilos, that's 200 to 400 pounds. Sightings of the Yeti predate the 19th century. According to Halfdan Sigga, the Yeti was a belief from the people of Buddhism. He was also told that the Lepcha people worshipped a glacier being, and that the people of the Bon religion once used the blood of a Mira god, translating to wild man, would be used for ceremonial purposes. This wild man was described as making a whooshing sound. In 1832, an English scholar named James Prinsep published the Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. In his journey, he included Brian Houghton Hodgson's sightings of the Yeti. His local guide spotted a creature with dark hair, running in fear, and Brian concluded it was a giant orangutan. In 1899, Lawrence Austin Waddell published Among the Himalayas. In his book, he mentioned the photograph of footprints taken by his local guide, who said it was left by an ape. However, Lawrence disagreed and thought it was made by a bear. As the world entered the beginning of the 20th century, more sightings occurred. In 1925, Nikolaos Topazis, a Greek photographer, claimed that he saw a large biped creature near the Zemu Glacier. He said that he was observing the creature from around 270 meters away. In 1951, Eric Earl Shipton was attempting to climb the whole of Mount Everest when he took numerous pictures and footprints in the snow at around 6,000 meters above sea level. A year later, in 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay were also attempting to scale Mount Everest when they too found tracks in the snow. In 1954, the Daily Mail were doing an expedition travelling from Mount Everest all the way to Mount Kanchenjunga. The mountaineering leader, Jonathan Jackson, photographed paintings of the Yeti at the village of Tengboche. In 1956, a Polish army lieutenant named Sławomir Raciszek published The Long Walk. In his book, he included his account of when his path was blocked by a bipedal creature moving around. In 1970, a British mountaineer called Donald Willans claimed to have seen a creature on all fours, meaning it was quadrupedal, while trying to scale Mount Annapurna. In 2007, Joshua Gates and his team, well, for those who don't know, Joshua Gates is a TV presenter. Joshua Gates and his team claimed to have found footprints in Nepal that match descriptions of the Yeti. In 2008, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Channel, collected hair from northeast India, and the hair was later analysed at Oxford Brookes University by primatologist Anna Neckaris and microscopy expert John Wells. All the way up to 2019, an Indian mountaineering team spotted footprints near the Makalu base camp. They propose that it belongs to a Yeti. There are a lot of films featuring the Yeti. These are stuff like The Snow Creature, Man Beast, Shriek of the Mutilated, and even Monsters Inc. And even Minions. Ningen or Ningen is often disputed as either being an Asian cryptid or an Antarctic cryptid. The reason for this is because it is regarded as either a Japanese mermaid or an Antarctic whale. Ningen could be, or Ningen. Leave in the comments how you pronounce this, I don't know. Ningen could be a dangerous Asian mermaid, which would mean it's a carnivore, but others say it's an Antarctic whale, which would mean it feeds on plankton and it is a planktivore. Most reports describe it to be between 20 to 30 meters long. The Ningen's first sighting was back in the 1960s, but this is yet to be confirmed. The sightings of the Ningen only caught on in the 1990s, when a Japanese fishing boat was in Antarctica, when it saw a giant white mass of something. They thought it was a submarine, but then saw it as a living creature. The living creature that they saw then delved deep into the depths of Antarctica. Many people suspect that Ningen is just an albino species of creature such as a stingray or a skate. Others say people are misidentifying beluga whales or bowhead whales for Ningen. However, a big event happened. In 2005, Google Earth captured a picture of what many thought was a photo of Ningen, which it showed whatever it was, had supposed arms. However, others believe that it was an iceberg that coincidentally looked like a creature, and I have the picture that Google Earth captured. These are the films, and this is the picture that Google Earth captured. Do you think it's real? Leave in the comments. This was caught in 2005. I'm not sure if those coordinates will actually still take you to this picture, because, yeah, you know, it was made in 2005. But I'm going to have to experiment myself, and yeah, I will tell you in the comments. But you can search up now. Cabagon. Much like Ningen, Cabagon is another cryptid debated to be either Asian or Australian/New Zealand. The reason for this is because although it was spotted near New Zealand, it was spotted by a Japanese fishing boat. Its diet is unknown, and the first sighting was in 1974, and the person who sighted it believed that its head alone was 1.5 meters tall. The first sighting of Cabagon was in 1974, when a Japanese fishing vessel set off at 7 o'clock in the evening. On board were 26 to 28 crew members and Captain Kimura, captain of the Japanese vessel known as the 28th Konpiramaru. Suddenly, Kimura spotted a large creature off the shore of the Littleton Peninsula. The creature's head alone was around 1.5 meters tall, and it submerged back into the water. After this encounter, Captain Kimura sketched the creature that he saw. His drawing was featured in New Zealand Weekly magazine, and footprints were also found on a beach near where the boat had set off from. Some suggest that people are misidentifying Cabagon for a southern elephant seal, and this creature, the southern elephant seal, has supposedly been mistaken of sightings for cryptids such as the Helena manatee, the bunyip, and the Steller sea cow. The large Antarctic sea mammal. Credit to Nicholas Dodge and Dizua123 for the drawing of this image. I do not own this, it is theirs. This is yet again another cryptid debated to be either Asian or Antarctic. The reason for this is because although it was encountered in the Antarctic Ocean, it was spotted by a Japanese research ship. The large Antarctic sea mammal is said to prey on fish, but its size is unknown. So far, the only sighting of the large Antarctic sea mammal was in 1958. A vessel known as the Soya Nihongo encountered a large creature at Lutzohome Bay in the Queen Maud Land of Antarctica. Over the recent years, however, the large Antarctic sea mammal has gained popularity in Godzilla culture, as one of the crew members who sighted the creature in 1958 described it as the Antarctic Godzilla. This cryptid not only got its own page on Gojipedia, but even got its own toy figure, which what people suspect it looked like. This is a very interesting cryptid, the southern narwhal. What is the southern narwhal, however? The southern narwhal is actually debated to be a narwhal or not. It is a tusk crustacean that was first sighted in the 1650s, more commonly the 1615. It is only referred to as a narwhal because whatever the creature is, it had a long tusk. Judging by the fact it has characteristics of a narwhal, we will presume that it has the same diet as one. Because of this, it means it probably feeds on cod and shrimp, and it is said to be around 3 meters long. The first sighting of the southern narwhal was in 1615. Dutch explorer Willem Schouten mentioned in his journal that during his journey to the mid-Atlantic, one of his ships was rammed by a monster, a sea monster. Later, the monster, or quote-unquote monster, left a giant spike left in the ship. A little later in 1620, Augustin de Beaulieu spotted a dark blue porpoise-like animal that had a high fin and a tusk that was around 1 to 2 feet long, or 30 to 60 centimeters. He found it in the South Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Africa. Around 272 years later, in 1892, the crew of a vessel known as the Baleine claimed to have spotted a narwhal-like creature in the Bransfield Strait in Antarctica. Jurmu. Jurmu is a dinosaur. This is personally my favourite. I think you know why. Jurmu is a dinosaur-like cryptid that is said to inhabit the North Andaman Islands, much like the Andaman wood owl. In the language of Apasiqua, Jurmu is said to eat any man or woman that stands in its way. From this we can see that he is carnivorous. It is unknown of Jurmu's diet, but it is said that Jurmu is believed to inhabit the North Andaman Islands. There haven't been many sightings of it, and the last known sighting was in the 1920s. However, it is greatly evident that the people of the Apasiqua language fear this creature greatly. When the British introduced elephants to the island, the North Andaman Island, the British described the locals as they fearing the elephants, just like they do with Jurmu. Some people suggest that it is a prehistoric lizard that has survived extinction, much like the prehistoric fish known as the coelacanth. Following on to this, some people believe that Jurmu is a surviving species of Dilophosaurus revirili, a double-crested lizard that lived from 201 to 183 million years ago. And you just got a sneak peek of the next episode, and that is all of the Asian cryptids I have on offer today. This wasn't rushed, but it was greatly overdue, so I do apologise if you are a fan of this series, but you didn't get an episode in a long time. This time I have a promise. I don't know if I can keep it though, but I do promise that I will try to not lose interest in this series again, and that videos will be given promptly. But apart from this, I thank all of you for joining me on this episode, and stay tuned for episode 4 for creatures from Australia, and I'll give you a sneak peek just because I love you guys a lot. Bunyip. Well, that's the end of this video. If you did enjoy, I'm not forcing you to do this, but just, if you want, like and subscribe. But if you're looking forward to episode 4, just remember the bunyip. But it's goodbye from me, and goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.